Greetings! Recently, we've partnered with Hearth Arena, and we're starting a new exciting series where we dive into the arena and talk about its meta. Hopefully with this video, you're able to get the most out of Hearth Arena, as well as improve your experience with this challenging game mode. At the end, we'll share some 12-win decks and how they reflect the existing meta. To start off, for those who weren't aware, drafting in Arena is currently based on a bucket system. Details on this are highlighted in the description below. Long story short, cards are offered among similar power levels based on Blizzard's mysterious algorithm. With this system and the Witchwood expansion, a couple of main themes drive the current meta in the decks you see in Arena. The dominance of 3 drops. In Arena, the curve of your deck dictates a large part of your success. Long before Witchwood, Curve Stone was a regular meme in Arena. That is, playing a 1-drop on turn 1, a 2-drop on turn 2, and so on, and eventually killing your opponent before turn 8 because you curved better than they did. In Witchwood, the curve starts on turn 3. This is because there are a lot of premium 3-mana minions that can completely eat your 2-drops and still be a threat on board. Ever since Ungoro, Blizzard, whether intentionally or not, decided to print less powerful 2-drops and way more premium 3-drops. With every expansion since, the only premium neutral 2-drop in Arena is Stubborn Gastropod, while there are plenty of premium 3-drops. Remember, Arena is all about using the cards you drafted to the best of their abilities. 2-drops are best dropped on turn 2 and become significantly worse after turn 2 because most minions after that can eat your 2-drop and still be a threat. The reason 2-drops worked before in Arena is because there weren't that many premium 3-drops. In Witchwood, you're drafting cards like Plated Beetle, Fairy Dragon, and Rockpool Hunter, for example, and they get completely stomped by a 3-mana 3/4. You end up being behind on board and card value on turn 3. At that point, Arena would escalate into a snowball, where your opponent will continue to get either value trades or pushing face while you end up struggling to get on board. Keep in mind, when we mention premium 3-drops on 3, we don't mean cards like Stonehill Defender, even though it also costs 3 mana. Stonehill Defender is a low tempo play that doesn't really contest your opponent's 3-drops. If your opponent plays a 3-mana 4/3 like Dragon Slayer, Injured Blademaster, or any poisonous minion, you're still behind on tempo. In the early game, whether you're a control deck or an aggressive deck, it's still all about tempo. You can play Stonehill later on, but you need to contest your opponent's early game so they don't snowball the board. This is why good players usually don't even keep Stonehill Defender in their opening hand. We'll draft enough premium 3-drops so we can play on turn 3 that have greater impact than Stonehill. Now, obviously, Stonehill is a good play if you had to protect a 1-drop or a 2-drop, but typically you should form a good habit of dropping good tempo early game minions versus playing a slower minion that doesn't contest your opponent's board. With that said, does that mean you should neglect all 2-drops? No, you'd still draft 2-mana minions, but they should still be good after turn 2. As a summary of a drafting curve for your early game, you should generally aim for at least 5 good 3-drops you should play on turn 3, 1 to 3 1-drops, and 3 to 5 4-drops. Sometimes 12-win decks may not have a single playable 2-drop at all, but have 2-mana cards such as Sound the Bells, Flametongue Totem, Stormforged Axe, small removals, and so on that are good later on. The dominance of 3-drops becomes even more meta-defining when you look at the current existing top 3 classes of Arena. If you check Hearthstone replay stats, Warlock, Rogue, and Paladin are in the top 3. All of these classes benefit from their turn 2 hero power in some way. If they open with a 1-drop, a hero power, and a premium 3-drop, they don't lose their turn 2 tempo as much as other classes. Paladin can summon a 1/1, Warlock can draw a card, and Rogue can dagger up and save the weapon for future use. For other classes such as Mage, Druid, Warrior, if they hero power on turn 2 on an empty board, they're already slightly behind because they didn't get any tempo or value from their hero power. This means usually they have to draft more 2-drops than these top 3 classes as we discussed. 2-drops are simply not that good right now. Okay, so let's move on to another important theme, the popularity of rare and epic cards. In a recent Designer Insight article, Blizzard acknowledged that rare cards and epic cards are appearing way more often than they should. Right now, you can draft a deck with more rare than common cards. At the same time, class spells and weapons appear much more often in drafting based on a previous update. How does this affect Arena? Well, now you'll see rare class spells at an alarmingly popular rate. According to HS Replay, Defile, Blizzard, Lightning Storm, Shadow Madness, Starfall are appearing in 3/4 of all arena decks in their respective classes. That's a lot of AoE. This means that popular rare cards are cards that you should definitely play around, at least the first copy. A special mention has to be given to Defile. Not only is it a popular card, it is extremely powerful if it goes off in the mid to late game. It's a 2-mana card that can clear a full board and then have a minion played in the same turn. No matter if you're control, mid-range, or aggro deck, a swing this massive is game-winning against anyone. This is yet another reason that Warlock is number 1 right now. Warlock has a lot of removal that's rare and epic, and a lot of powerful rare and epic cards. With the bucket system, you can reliably draft around a spellstone and heal up while removing minions. Another extremely popular and rare class card is Silver Sword. Silver Sword is such an insane late game value generator that clearing the Paladin's board consistently becomes extremely important. At the same time, weapon hate minions become premium. It is usually correct to draft a Corrosive Sludge and Gluttonous Ooze because they're in a bad bucket. The Oozes also help you against rogue matchups, the rare Hunter-Warrior matchups, and Shaman matchups. One final rare card to highlight is Mind Control Tech. This card is in 22% of all arena decks right now. With the existing meta, there are tons of situations where you end up with 4 minions and MCT, even if stealing a 1/1 becomes a 3-mana, deal 1 damage, and summon a 1/1. This is a card that will ruin your day sometimes, no matter how well you play around it. The best advice we can give you is, you have to evaluate how devastating Mind Control Tech is for you if you play that 4th minion. Usually you never hero power 1/1 or a totem if you're already far ahead with a steed on board. However, tons of times you have to play something to contest their board. Generally, if you have a large taunt, you should try your best to play around MCT, but more often than not you shouldn't play around MCT because you need to keep developing on the board. The last theme we want to talk about is the rise of priests. Blizzard noticed warriors and priests were doing worse than they should and increased the appearance of good cards in their drafts. Warrior is still considered the worst class currently, but priest only needed a little nudge to rise. Given the fact that we know rare cards appear much more and it's a 3-drop meta, how would you play against priest or play as a priest yourself? The first answer is easier. You draft a solid curve starting on 3 and play around Shadow Madness as best as you can. Priests tend to have a lot of situational removals, so a solid curve from turn 3 and controlling the board while drafting around 2 large removals against their free from ambers is your best chance at winning. Drafting as a priest is much trickier. You have to balance your removals and your minions during drafting. As a priest, your early game curve doesn't necessarily have to be as solid since you'll draft Shadow Madness, Pain, and Holy Nova, but you still want to make sure you follow that 3-drop paradigm. Free from Amber is also deceptively not as good as it seems. It's in the top bucket and it's very common to see in Arena, however, it's not even considered as a top 20 priest card according to the stats. This is because if Free from Amber doesn't generate a large taunt, you usually just die. You cannot have an 8-mana card that doesn't give you immediate board presence in Arena. At the same time, Amber is usually compared to other premium cards such as Shadow or Death, Mind Control, Primordial Drake, and these are all cards you should take over Amber. Now that we've talked about the trends in the meta, let's give you some examples of 12-win runs. As a disclaimer, as 12-win decks, there's definitely some value in these decks, but they aren't over the top powerful. Off the bat, you can see all 3 decks had a curve similar to the one we described before. Lots of 3s, some 1s, some 4s, and some large removals. Warlock is interesting in the fact that Plated Beetle is a premium 2-drop for the class due to the heal, which is really relevant. Amani Berserker is also perhaps the best 2-drop in the game that you can drop on turn 2. That deck also had no AoE because the curve is really good. It had good taunts and the 2 Royal Guards acted as huge removals. In Rogue, you generally want 3 to 4 hard removals with 2 to 3 card draws in addition to the curve we described. In Paladin, 1-drops are a must because it's all about snowballing the board early on. And there you have it. With Boomsday coming soon, look forward to the next Arena meta-analysis. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.